here with their magic. And I'm going to start by introducing today Denise Villamil. She is our first writer today. Denise Villamil lives in Highland Park with her daughter, Elena. She works as a director of youth development for Alma Family Services. Denise loves the outdoors, camping, and helping others. And her story today is titled Papi Nacho.
Thank you. Sometimes I would sleep through it, but most mornings I heard my dad leave for the day. I would hear his footsteps down the hallway, his keys rattle into his pocket, and the door close behind him. I looked over to my bedside clock reading 5 a.m. and fell back asleep. This was my dad's routine for nearly 40 years working for Clifton's cafeterias. It was the late 60s, barely an adult and brand new to this country when he started. He worked his way up from a dishwasher to a restaurant manager. He worked in Laguna Niguel, West Covina, Lakewood, and infamous downtown LA. That was where he worked the longest, Brookdale Clifton's cafeteria on Broadway. My mother and I would take the 60 bus on Saturdays to eat with him during his lunch break. I would skip breakfast to make sure that I would have enough room for a big lunch. A few stops before, I eagerly looked out the bus window reading the street signs and counting traffic lights. Los Angeles Street, Main Street, Spring Street, and finally Broadway. Ready to jump out of the bus when we arrived at our stop and having mentally made a list of all the desserts and food I would put on my tray. Way too much for a 5-year-old, for sure. I pulled my mom's hand as I fast-paced in front of her towards the entrance. We were greeted by the entrance bakery and staff waving, "Hola, mija, ¿cómo estás?" I would run and get a tray. By then, my dad would have spotted me and he would come and give me a hug. He reminded me to only get what I would finish eating and not to overpack my tray. My favorite part was feeling like I had stepped into a forest. The restaurant had a California forest theme. After finishing my meals, I would go up and down the stairs and explore. It was beautiful. Real trees, running water streams, and forest animals everywhere. As I got older, we took less trips on the bus to downtown. When I started college, I would go on my own and sometimes with friends. My dad working at Clifton's was always a conversation starter. The last time we shared a meal at Clifton's was when I was pregnant with my daughter 10 years ago. A few months after, my dad called me and he said, "Mija, me corrieron." He said they fired him. I left work to see my dad. At home, he sat on the couch he rarely got to enjoy. He cried. It was the first time I saw my dad cry. He shared how the new owners asked him to the office and handed him his last check. The plan was to hire new staff and they walked him out. It took us a while to accept the transition and for my dad to find work again. But my dad was able to do something he hadn't done before. He took care of a baby, my daughter. While he waited to find work and received unemployment, he helped change diapers, rocked the baby to sleep, and spent days hugging his granddaughter. My dad hadn't had the chance to do this with his daughters, and now he was able to. My dad eventually returned to work. I love my dad for his resilience, for the memories we created while he worked at Clifton's, and for the role he has in raising my daughter.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Thank you. And next we have Julia Zayas Melendez. Julia has been a stage manager for more than 20 years with various theaters and productions on all 3 coasts of America, Boston, Los Angeles, and Chicago, where she spent the bulk of her career. While in Chicago, she also operated her own small business, One Crafty Broad, designing and altering wedding gowns. In 2018, Julia moved to California and transitioned her many years of experience into the world of themed entertainment, where she now focuses her creative energy on building new kinds of stories. She is grateful to Casa 0101 for the opportunity to share some with all of you. Julia.
Rear view. The pain was so extreme. I couldn't stop crying and it felt just like it sounds, the heartbreak. My heart felt like shards of ice in my chest and the pressure wouldn't ease up. All I wanted was to make the pain stop. The panic attacks rushed through me in waves and it was so much work to keep asking for help, to say over and over again, "I'm not okay, I feel like I'm dying." In the back of my mind, I imagined an easier way to just make it all stop. But it wasn't at the back of my mind anymore. It had pushed through, practically through the windshield in front of me, and I screamed and cried through the tears and gripped the steering wheel hard. The guardrail was so very close, and if I just pulled myself there, the pain just might stop. When I look at the mirror now, I often look past. I choose not to focus. It's an everyday, ordinary thing, and most of the time I don't even look. These days, when I choose to really engage, to see the eyes looking back at me, to notice the thickness of my face or the new grays in my hair, I make the calculations in less than an instant. I make a choice. I don't even notice it anymore, how regular and easy that choice is. I know that I can find fault and disappointment, but I don't. I choose the positive. I always do now. So I look back and I smile. She's still there, that dark demon who could only see the pain and suffering, who couldn't believe that it would get better, who thought the only way to end the pain was pressing her foot on that accelerator and through that guardrail. Of course she's still there. But I worked hard to get past her destruction, to transform that pain within me to mere flashes of grief that don't need to pull me down anymore. It can always get better, and it has. I can see that now. It doesn't matter that my face is thicker, or that I look tired, or that my life isn't what I had planned. What matters is that life is good now, truly, deeply good. And so I look back at that girl in the mirror and I smile. One more piece. Delicate carvings. The moment that this became more than just an ordinary box was a moment full of hope, anticipation, and joyous certainty. The engagement ring that I would put inside of it wasn't ostentatious, so it needed to be held inside of something simply beautiful, like its naturally dark stain and delicate carvings. I wanted the look on her face to be in response to what was inside of the box, not the giveaway clue of a typical velvet one. Ultimately, it didn't matter. The way my hand shook slightly when I put it on the table and the quiver in my voice when I started the question gave it all away. Before I could open it, before I could even finish the sentence, she found my eyes, matched my joy with hers, and said yes. This imbued the box forever. And so when we needed a place for our rings for the ceremony, this was their natural home. The delicate carvings on the top reflected the light in photographs, and I sewed a tiny ring pillow from the same fabric with which I'd made my wedding gown. More than a decade later, I hold on to this box still, hiding away, but close by, with the ring pillow and my old wedding rings sitting inside. It holds inside of it still the hope of the marriage that didn't last, the joy of that choice that I made, and the beauty of my love for her. The pain of losing it all can stay at bay as long as it stays closed, holding safe the memory of that look in her eyes.
Thank you, Julia. That was beautiful. They were both beautiful pieces. Thank you so much for sharing. Wow. Our next writer and participant is Lorena Ramirez with Siempre en Domingo. Lore Ramirez, born in Jalisco, Mexico in 1978 and polished in Los Angeles, California since 1993. Lorena is married to an amazing husband and mother of 2 wonderful children.
Here you are, Lorena, you and your primas watching Siempre en Domingo, eating cacahuates. My friend, get into the room. Lorena, your boyfriend is outside waiting for you. My boyfriend? Let me go check what is he doing here so early. What are you doing here this early? Hey, listen, I'm going to El Norte. Do you want to come with me? He answers. At that moment, I didn't know what to do. If I stay, I will lose the love of my life. But if I leave, I will lose the love of my bird. A big flashback came to me. Lorena, remember that night when he came, knocked your window at your abuelita's house where you used to sleep to make her company, and he broke up with you with not giving any reason, and you cried the whole entire night with having not sleep, just thinking why he did that to you, and feeling your life have no meaning. And your head went crazy, thinking, what's next? 7 a.m. in the morning, I got up of bed before anyone did. I don't want nobody to see me crying, but this pain had to go away. I went into my uncle's things, grabbed the big bottle of apple juice, walked back to El Corral, where all his pigs are, opened the bottle, feeling my tears dropping to my chest. Suddenly, my brother's voice yelling at me, Lorena, no seas pendeja. That is not apple juice. That is poison for the mice. He grabbed the bottle, saying, I just milked the cows. Grab some milk, todavía está calientita. I went fast to my abuelita's room. She was awake. Are you still crying for your boyfriend? Listen, mija, your life is just begin. Don't cry no more. Later on, shower, put some lip color on your lips, and you go to La Plaza with your primas. You will find someone who really loves you. At that time, I was not crying for my boyfriend. I was crying. I was feared that my brother is going to tell my mom what I was trying to do. My mom called me, Lorena, go tell your uncles and brother breakfast is ready. Went back to El Corral where they were feeding the pigs. You guys, breakfast is ready. Hoping he says he's not hungry. I went back to the kitchen. My mom telling me, sírveles. I put the beans and eggs in the plate, shaking my hands. They got in the kitchen, sit down. My brother says, frijoles otra vez? Sip his tortillas into the frijoles, starting eating. I got up of the kitchen, waiting for them to finish to wash the dishes, feeling the fear that at what time my mom will come out with a belt and kick me out of the house. My brother got out after my uncles to go back and finish their work. I went into the kitchen. My mom was, ¿vas a desayunar? If not, start cleaning because we are going to see the parade for La Virgen de Guadalupe. I'm not hungry. I clean and I eat later. Until this time, I don't know if my brother knew what I was trying to do. But what I know, thanks to him, I'm still here. So Lorena, get the adventure begins. The love of your life is waiting for you.
Thank you, Lorena. That's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful story. Wow. All these stories are so wonderful. Our next reader and writer is Jesus Ibarra. Jesus Ibarra is a 35-year-old LA-raised dad, brother, son, and friend. Jesus joined the Casa 0101 parent and caretaker storytelling class in 2018 and has enjoyed the opportunity to find the inner writer he had hidden away for so long. Jesus has enjoyed the many friends he has made in the class and considers the writing space one of healing. Is Jesus here with us? I think his phone may have.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I was on
There
mute,
you
sorry.
are.
Thank
you. Okay, I got a small piece before my main piece. I grew up in a house full of people who felt worlds apart. Although we shared the same roof, it often lacked the warmth of a heart. And just like the stars in the galaxy, I felt surrounded by darkness, along with this cold, heavy feeling that would often make me feel helpless. I can hear the screams of my parents fighting, each time more violent. It became less and less frightening with my voice going silent. And although my voice became silent, my actions spoke loudly, but still no one could hear me. So I began this cycle of pain that once hurt me, until I broke that first link of chains that once cursed me. Another piece is when I sit to write, the biggest topics that come to mind are heartbreak and parenting in no particular order. Oftentimes,
We'll just give him a second to unfreeze. This is the beauty of live programming. We're at the mercy of the US internet system.
amongst my daily duties as a dad, I feel it necessary to continue that scratch, peeling back the moments to what has made me who I am today. This layer I scratch begins with my parents. A little over a year ago, late August, they split up. It wasn't a mutual agreement, instead, domestic violence, and my mom was just fed up. After my separation, which led to my divorce in 2008, I tried to convince my mom to do the same. I know it sounds mean, but knowing my dad, I doubt he would ever change. Being the most influential man my childhood's ever had, he's always chose the bottle and his fist before being a dad. Before Sophia was born, I used to think this was normal and how a real man should be, not knowing that then those same demons that controlled him would also control me. As a child, I walked in my dad's shadow. He was my hero, who lived like an outlaw in the Wild West, except he had a family and lived in Los Angeles. Still, nonetheless, I'd copy his steps until after Sophia was born, I slowly began to see that this wasn't the life that I wanted for her or me. That's when I began to grow apart from my dad, while trying to figure out why I grew up so mad. The tension between us grew, but I still visit him and my mom. Until that morning in August when he beat her for not tagging along. He went to jail after that, but not without a fight. He had a knife in his hand, and LAPD shot him, but they didn't turn out his lights. He was hit with a beanbag round that took his old, angry, withered body to the ground. When I heard the news, I felt like a child, not knowing what to do. Instead, my rage for him just grew wild. I began to check on my mom to help her transition. And for the first time in my life, she looked free and full of ambition. The look didn't last when reality set that she's in her 70s and has no income and has to start over. To start over and try to survive, it's heartbreaking to see her struggle, but I'm glad she's alive.
Jesus, I'm sorry to ask you this, but you froze right after you stated that you were glad that she was alive. If you don't mind sharing the rest of the story with us one more time.
So my dad's been out of jail and we're like strangers. Part of me misses him and the rest is just anger.
Thank you, Jesus. I appreciate you sharing that story. Thank you so much. And following up that story will be Marilena Covarrubias with her story titled Don't Say Anything. Marilena is a Nicaragua native writer and producer. She has been part of Chicanas, Cholas y Chismes since 2014 and participated in various productions as costume designer assistant. Marilena is thrilled to participate in the storytelling and grateful to her teachers and fellow students for giving her the opportunity and support in this new adventure. Thank you, Marilena.
Don't say anything. As a child, I stood up to my father many times and earned the title of brat. My brother told his friends sometimes to watch out, that I had a big mouth. My mother used to say I had a bad temper and I had to control it. It was not nice to be telling people how you really felt. Sometimes she would give me the pinch under my arm. You know, like the ones your mom would grab just enough skin to make you scream, but only tears would come out. After a while, I chose to stay quiet and say nothing at all. After high school, I came to the United States of America, the promised land, the yes land, but there were no promises. Even learning English was hard, and it took me a long time to be brave and speak it. What if I said the wrong thing again, like so many years before? But I did conquer that fear, and I think I almost speak it now. In the midst of many struggles in America, I met a wonderful Mexican man. We got married and raised 3 beautiful daughters, and my life was finally normal. Until one day, my perfect life got uprooted by a storm. I realized that my daughter was a lesbian. The feeling of guilt was so strong, and the questions kept coming at me like a tornado in Flatlands. They punched my stomach, choked me at the same time. What did I do wrong? Why didn't I see it coming? How could I have let this happen? Where was I? Was I blind? Why was it okay for my friends to have lesbian daughters? My sweet husband and daughters accepted it. So that made me a hypocrite. There was no escaping these feelings of guilt and despair. I've spent many years feeling this way, like driving through the fog without headlights. But I wanted to learn also other people's stories. So I registered to take some writing classes at CASA. One night, my class was canceled and I didn't have anything else to do. So I walked into another class. It was a Chicanas, Cholas y Chisme class. A group of women were sitting at a table, writing short plays of no more than 10 minutes, and it only cost $10. So I joined the class, but I didn't know anything what to write about. I had nothing to say. I wasn't going to share my life experiences with strangers. I didn't want them to find out I was a bad mother. How embarrassing. They would feel that I would feel if they knew about my daughter. What would they think of her? And yet, walking into the class that night was one of the best mistakes of my life. CCC taught me that it was okay to speak up. It was okay to share my feelings. It was okay to tell my story. So I went to work. As I wrote, I cried with every line, every phrase, every moment. I relieved it when I found out about my daughter. And at the same time, with every line, every phrase, I was purging those feelings out of my heart. With every line, every phrase I wrote, I understood my daughter better. Through my writing, I was accepting her for who she was, the same beautiful, thoughtful, kind-hearted self. I realized that it was all fear of the discrimination she would go through. Through the writing, I got the strength to tell my story, to share my life with strangers, to stand and have a voice and advocate for all the youth that is misunderstood and suffer discrimination from their parents, their peers, and friends and classmates. To support them, we must support our children, tell them we love them no matter what, and encourage them to speak up until people hear their voice.
Thank you so much, Maria Elena, for sharing that. Such an important story. So important to continue allowing those to share their voices. Thank you. Thank you, Maria Elena. Our next reader is J Africa with Empty Spaces. J Africa is a creative spirit who has filled various roles as actor, designer, stage manager, producer, musical director, and musician. Outside the theater, he is a freelance graphic designer, a game designer who writes adventures for Dungeons and Dragons, wonderful, and a daddy to two great boys. Thank you, Jay, for joining us.
Hello, everybody. In 1989, the land of my birth dropped away below a plane taking me to America. I had seen that sight once before, well, once at 10 years old and again at 12 years old. The runway opening up to a sea of rooftops, many of them distinct at first, then blurring into a mishmash of colors as we climbed higher and higher and lost the details. At 10 and 12, I took that flight with the knowledge that I was coming back, that I would be returning home. And not quite 14, the land disappearing below was no longer my home. I was speeding towards a new life. And behind me were empty spaces I'd never fill. I often measure my life in its empty spaces. Empty spaces left open by friends I'd left behind. Spaces gone quiet from the ruckus of a dozen cousins playing together at massive family gatherings. Wide open spaces that once knew the incomparable joy of massive family gatherings. Spaces where a younger me once ran excitedly, having late night adventures in a seaside city I would grow to love. Spaces where my dreams and aspirations once ran wildly, energized with the mere possibility of coming true. Spaces where a marriage used to be. I often measure my life in its empty spaces. And the story is about two of them. When the mountain touches the valley, all the clouds are taught to fly. Thus our souls will leave this land most peacefully. Though our minds be filled with questions, in our hearts we understand. When the river meets the sea. In 2011, my sister Leslie, younger than me by 9 years, got married. It was an exciting time for the whole family. The day was electric for my sister, for her husband-to-be, for our tatay and nanay, and for me and my own family. Now, both Leslie and her husband, Sean, are musicians, so one of their wedding favors was a guitar pick printed with their wedding date. I remember holding this pick during the reception and thinking how wonderful it was for so much of my family to be together for the event, for that empty space to be filled. Temporary as it would be. We had uncles, aunts, cousins, and other family members fly in from both US coasts and from the Philippines to attend. My mind drifted to the two most important people who couldn't be there. My brother AJ and my sister Paige. AJ was 9 months old when he passed away in 1983 from a rare genetic condition. Paige was 7 months old when she passed away 10 years later in 1993 from that same genetic condition. There's always a pang of loneliness that comes with family milestones. Our family of 4, Nanay, Tatay, Leng Leng, and me, should have been a family of 6. AJ would have filled the age gap between me and Leslie. Paige would have balanced out the male and female energy in my family. As life goes on, we fill the empty spaces of our lives with other people, other places, and other experiences. Some spaces do remain empty forever, though. I've carried these empty spaces in my heart and soul for decades now. The space where I would have kept the memory of AJ's laughter, which I loved, sounding older and older as the years pass, or of the bright look in his eyes upon getting his first car, or of big family dinners with his own family, should he have chosen to start one. Memories of Paige's favorite song, or of her high school graduation, or of meeting her boyfriend or girlfriend for the first time. Memories of what AJ and Paige could have become, of the good they would have done for the world, of the dreams me and my family would have seen come true. These empty spaces never fail to resurface. Sometimes I stumble into them. Sometimes I walk in knowingly. But there have been many moments in my life touched by these 2 empty spaces. Sitting at the reception at Leslie and Sean's wedding, the contrast between electric joy and lasting grief lingered in the spaces AJ and Paige would never fill. Like a flower that has blossomed in the dry and barren sand, we are born and born again most gracefully. Thus the winds of time will take us with a sure and steady hand, when the river meets the sea. Patience, my siblings, and patience, my sons, in that sweet and final hour, truth and justice will be done. Like a baby when it is sleeping in its loving mother's arms, what a newborn baby dreams is a mystery. But its life will find a purpose, and in time he'll understand, when the river meets the sea. When the river meets the almighty sea. Thank you for listening to my story.
Oh my goodness, Jay. Ooh, sorry. For those who have been following along with this journey, you'll know that I cry every time I hear this story. And today is no different. Thank you, Jay, for sharing that. So beautiful. I'm going to take a quick moment to introduce the president of the Casa 0101 board. I think we have him here. I don't see him.
I'm here. Buenos dias.
Yay, thank you, Edward Padilla. I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic for a moment. Thank you, Eddie, for being here.
It's thank you so much, Lorena and Maria, for putting this together. And it's so wonderful to hear these beautiful stories. I'm so impressed at the breadth of work and really impressed at how much deeper and wider these stories have gotten than what we anticipated, at least in my perspective. I didn't know what would come of this program. This is such amazing storytelling that we're getting to witness. So thank you so much, everyone, for putting your heart and your trust in this team that's guiding you through it. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for being such a valuable part of our organization as well. Love you guys. I would love to see this again, so hopefully we'll find a way to screen it at another time.
Thank you. That's a great idea, Eddie. We are recording it today, and hopefully we'll get permission from all of the writers to share it publicly in a different capacity. Thank you. So I am going to have the pleasure now of introducing the lead facilitator of this group, Maria Martinez, Maria G. Martinez. Once I introduce her, she'll be sharing her piece and be taking over the MC duties for the rest of this program. Maria G. Martinez, before I go further, I do want to remind you that it has been an immeasurable pleasure and honor to work with you. And I'm so excited that you agreed to share a piece today. I think we twisted your arm a little bit, but we're glad that you agreed. Maria G. Martinez explores and shares her life experiences through writing, storytelling, theater, and comedy. She has been part of Casa 0101 for several years and has participated with Chicanas, Cholas y Chisme as a writer, director, and solo performer since its inception. Maria is here to share her story. Yo soy Maria.
Thank you, Lorena. I am Maria, Maria G, and this is my story. I originally was Guadalupe, Lupe, but the patriarchal government changed my name from Guadalupe to Maria. Why? Because according to men in power, all Mexican women are Marias. I also blame my parents and the Catholic Church. Together, they named me Maria, Maria Guadalupe, like double virginity, the most sacred bullshit that religion, parents, men, society have inflicted on women. And like a Maria, I learned to embrace my name. And soon I became a Chicana. And through that Chicanismo, I took my journey to make changes, to speak up, to create a revolution. I fought injustices. I fought machismo within the Chicano movement. Yes, I was ready for the revolution. Long black hair, Levi jeans, and a red bandana. But I ended up pregnant. Like a true virgin, the first time I had sex, stupid me, it was so close to my period. I was all mixed up with the rhythm theory. I guess I'm dyslexic. And I embrace motherhood totally because I am Maria and this is my story. I became an educated Chicana and embarked in my journey to make a better world for my gente and for everyone else. And when I encountered trouble and someone tried to stop me, I gladly took on the challenge. I empowered women, became so professional, developed projects, made so many changes for the better of the community. That nobody knows, because as bureaucrats, we did the work and the politicians take the credit. Now, fast forward to 2020. I had a show at Casa 0101 Theater and another show at Frida Kahlo Theater, a film opening at USC, and a paying commercial. Yes, it was only March 14, and I already know 2020 is my year. My daughter Katinka texted me, "Mom, we need to talk, it's important." My other daughter, Jessica, leaves me messages. "Mom, where are you? Mom, stay home. It's dangerous out there." I had no time to answer so many text calls from San Francisco. I'm busy. I'm at Casa facilitating a class, and right after that, I have a stage reading of my full-length play, Metcalf, at the Frida Kahlo Theater. Metcalf is scheduled to be presented at Casa 0101 on August 2020. Yes, 2020 is my year. I'm making it. Okay, I'm making it at 2 theaters, Casa and Frida Kahlo. But still, it's only March 14. Who knows what the rest of 2020 has planned for me? The following day, Sunday, March 15, 2020, my 4 sisters are at my house for an intervention session. My daughters are worried about me living la vida loca. They contact them to take action. My sisters bring toilet paper, Lysol cleaners, hand sanitizers, and they tell me, there is a pandemic, people are dying, and you are still going out? Lydia, the planner, says, we will quarantine ourselves. Each one of us will submit individual grocery and supply needs by Tuesday p.m. sharp. Only one of us will go out on Wednesdays to the store. Irma, the economically conscious one, says, and we will buy at Costco in bulk. This pandemic will not bankrupt us. Gracie says, Maria will not go shopping. She cannot be trusted yet. Terry says, you must understand the isolation process first. My 4 sisters leave my house. I stand by the window and watch them. They gather and talk. Then they leave, satisfied that they have accomplished their mission. My husband, Frank, comes out of his music room. We take a walk, stop at the neighborhood farmer's market. People are panicking, buying everything. I want to buy beans. ¿Qué? ¿Ya no hay frijoles? No more beans? We walk next door to the Mexican carniceria. There are no tortillas, solo empty shelves. We take pictures, we think it's funny. But days pass and people my age are dying. People at convalescent homes are dying. People with diabetes, high blood pressure, and bad kidneys like me are dying. Latinos and Blacks are dying. I no longer go out. Everything changed. Isolation, quarantine, no more coronas. I accept that I am technology challenged. Yes, I have a Facebook account and I can put a like here and a heart there, but I have no idea what Zoom is all about. I no longer go out of my house. Occasionally, I walk to the park and back early. And even though no one is there, I still wear my mask and social distance. I watch the news, read the paper. People are protesting, demanding to go shopping. I watch more news. Now the police is killing Black and brown people. They always did that, but now they're doing it in public during the day. More protests. A painful realization comes to me. I never made any changes. All my Chicana activist and bureaucratic days did not accomplish anything. They all want me dead. I withdraw. I do not answer calls, email, text, and least of all, Zoom. My hair turns gray. My daughters come to visit. It's actually a follow-up intervention. They think I have taken social distancing and social isolation to the max. They do not worry about Frank. Frank is a Buddhist. He can live in silence. I have started to write again and to communicate through phone and emails. Started Zoom, but I still wonder, have I become disposable? Am I already dead? What is the rest of 2020 going to be like? I joined Instagram. I'm really not sure what Instagram is, but I want to feel like I belong. So I get all these notifications that people have started to follow me. But I don't know where I'm going. I am going nowhere. Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you, everybody. So let's continue now. And that's why Lorena is here helping me with all the Zoom thing, you know. Our next presenter is Juan Tomas. Juan Tomas began his writing journey at Casa 0101 as part of the original parent and caretakers storytelling class in 2018. Under the leadership of Maria, Juan has found a passion for writing about his childhood experiences leading up to his days as a DJ for KUCI, Radio Rock and Roll. Juan is a proud parent of Casa 0101 youth performers and has discovered his own love of acting while performing his stories for the world to hear. Juan Tomas.
In the late 90s, I used to work in a hotel called Hilton of Anaheim. My role there was putting together the setups for major events like weddings, conferences, corporate parties, and my favorite, the annual NAMM conference. This conference was my favorite because it gave me the opportunity to see so many big names in the music industry, and the snacks we had access to weren't so bad either. Another perk of working for the function rooms was a monthly drawings management would host. Everyone in the department would spin the large wheel, and whenever the needle landed, would determine our monthly bonus. Sometimes the needle landed on a $5 bill, and other times I got home with a $25 bill, or $25. I never questioned where the money came from. I was just too excited to come home with extra cash in my pocket. During our breaks, we were told to take the time to read memos that were hung on the walls of our break room. There were always memos and flyers about work events and union meetings. I never really paid much attention to them and just let them stack on top of each other. One day I had some extra time to kill, and I curiously walked over to the wall to see if there was anything important I needed to know. I noticed there were so many letters written by customers thanking our department for a good job well done, saying how the setups were perfect and so well organized. They describe us as a well-oiled machine. But what I noticed was every time I walked by the memos was that they all had one or more section blacked out with a Sharpie marker. Upon closer inspection of the letters, when I held them up to the light, I noticed that the Sharpie markers was used to cover up the amount of money these customers were tipping our department. I couldn't believe it. Where was all that money going to if nobody ever told us about it? My coworkers didn't trust me yet. I was a new guy and the only bilingual member of my team. None of my coworkers were able to read English and have very limited English vocabulary. When I told them what I had discovered, they didn't want to believe me. Heck, I don't even know if I would have believed it if I didn't see it with my own eyes. The management team have been keeping it from us for a reason. But what was the reason? I told my coworkers, hoping that they would join forces with me and bring it up to the union. After all, it was the tips were meant for us and we weren't getting them. Someone else was getting them, but they didn't want to help me. They were afraid of retaliation such as losing work hours, being passed up for promotions, having their employment status revealed, or getting fired. They initially agreed to accompany me to meet with the union, but on the day of our appointment, they sent Raimundo to tell me that they weren't going to go with me after all. I met with the HR and our union rep and expressed our collective concerns regarding the lack of transparency of our tips our department should have been receiving all along. HR promised to investigate, and after a couple of weeks passed, they agreed with my decisions to provide transparency, and shortly thereafter, a memo was passed around the entire hotel notifying management and all incoming tips had to be made public on the company's memos walls. Although I had to fight alone, my fight wasn't for me alone. After this small victory, I had gained the trust of my coworkers, and they never called me the new guy again.
Thank you, Juan. Such an important story. It's just amazing, you know, and it's so important to speak up. And that's what we're doing here, speaking up, okay? Thank you. Our next presenter is Carrie Ramos. Carrie Ramos earned an MFA at the City College of New York with a specialization in documentary filmmaking. She is a media producer with a passion for storytelling, community activism, and teaching. She has produced and directed 2 feature-length films, as well as a number of short projects. Carrie is an experienced educator in video production and editing to students of every age and skill level. With you, I present Carrie Ramos.
Thank you, everyone. My piece is called 55 Henry Street. It's the first time I'm performing this piece to the public, and I want to thank Casa 101 for giving me the opportunity and the safe space to do so. I remember the day that my mom told me that we would be moving. I was so excited. We had been moving around from couch to couch for over 2 years, and we're currently staying with my grandmother in her trailer. I shared a bed with her, and she was not fond of any movement at night, a challenge for an 8-year-old. It had been just the 3 of us, my mom, my sister, and I, and even though our housing situation had been unstable, it did feel safe. So the idea of a bed in a place of our own sounded like a dream come true. I remember pulling up to our new house and thinking it was the most perfect place I had ever seen. I ran up the 4 steps that led to the front door and opened it, and there he was. I was confused and couldn't understand what this strange man was doing in our new house. My mom introduced us, and it became clear that he was going to be living there too. But in that moment, all I cared about was the bed that I would be sleeping in all alone. It didn't take long for us to be reminded of my mom's penchant for terrible men. Soon the shouting began, then the blood started flowing. Eventually, the broken bones and broken promises became our new reality. Since we were new to our neighborhood and school hadn't started yet, I spent a lot of time alone in my bedroom. I don't know if the hole in the wall was there when I first moved in, but I do remember only noticing it when I realized that there was an eyeball on the other side leering at me. I screamed and ran to find my mom, but she wasn't around. I found some paper and tape and covered the hole. I even convinced myself that maybe I had imagined it. However, the next day, when I came back to my room, the paper cover was gone and the eye on the other side was there again. After that, I always got dressed in the closet. One night while getting ready for bed, I went to lock my door only to realize that the lock was no longer there. That was the first night he came in. I heard my door open. When I looked up, I saw him standing over me. He didn't have any clothes on. I was 9 at the time and had never seen a naked man before. I was terrified. I asked him what he was doing there. He didn't answer. He just proceeded to get closer and closer. I was paralyzed by fear. I couldn't even scream. My voice and my consciousness left my body. When it was over, I just cried. That went on for 2 more years. I tried to tell my mom, but she wouldn't believe me. I don't know why or how a kid like me would make that up. But even though things were terrible at home, I was always fortunate to have amazing friends with mothers and grandmothers that let me stay with them. I don't remember ever telling them anything specific about what was going on at home, but I never needed to. They knew things were not right. Maybe it was my mother's black eyes and broken arms. Maybe it was the fact that nobody seemed to notice that I wasn't home. Eventually, I had a permanent spot on my friends' floors and was able to stay safe. Once he died, I found such liberation. His oppressive presence was no longer something I had to contend with. And I thought I had put those experiences behind me. I tried my best to forget them. But having children of my own really brings up a lot of those feelings. As a mother, there is nothing I wouldn't do to protect my children. There isn't a person in the world who could get between our bond or interfere with my absolute love for them. So it hurts so much to know that my mom was able to choose a monster over me. It is a wound that I will always be trying to heal.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much. It's amazing to have a space where we can get together every Sunday from 11 to 12:30 to talk about these issues that are not unique to one person and how to address them. You know, we respect each other and we really commend you, Carrie, and everybody else for sharing your stories. Okay, let's go next to our next presenter is Bertha Perez. Bertha is new this year to CASA 0101. She had the privilege of bringing her children a few years ago to Beauty and the Beast and fell in love with the organization. It was everything she felt theater should be. She and her children started taking online classes during this pandemic. Being part of this organization has been a silver lining during these times. She appreciates the space this organization has created to empower the voices of the communities. Here she is, Bertha Perez.
La Novena is a story about a loving memory of the 9-day Christmas Advent Rosary that my grandmother would devoutly pray with me during Christmas time. It is a story about what I realized was a distinct childhood experience with Mexican Catholicism during Christmas time. The elaborate nativity scene my grandmother would display created out of my toys, and my attempt to process it all at about 10 years old. La Novena. Aprendí en mi niñez que el catolicismo que yo aprendí en la escuela católica americana era muy diferente al catolicismo que aprendí en mi hogar. Mi familia venía de Jalisco, México, y nosotros celebrábamos la Navidad y rezábamos de una manera distinta a lo que los demás estudiantes estaban acostumbrados aquí en los Estados Unidos. Por ejemplo, en el tiempo que se acercaba la Navidad, mi abuelita y yo rezábamos la novela por casi 2 semanas cada noche. Durante este tiempo, los juguetes de mi cuarto se empezaban a desaparecer. Mi casita de Barbie aparecía en nuestra sala junto con mis animalitos y mi muñeco Aladino se convertía en el rey Herodes. Los demás juguetes eran parte del nacimiento que nunca faltaba en nuestro hogar en la Navidad. Junto a él rezábamos la novena. Una noche en particular, cuando tenía 10 años, sentía más ansiedad que nunca porque ya se acercaba la Navidad. Al rezar, escuchaba a mi abuelita dictar el rosario con voz monótona y muy seria. A veces rezaba tan rápido que sentía que era como una carrera responder, ruega por nosotros, ruega por nosotros, ruega por nosotros, lo más rápido posible. Entre respuestas y recitaciones, cuando cantaba usando su voz aguda y frágil, su vibrato latía en mi corazón. Pausaba solamente para narrar las diferentes partes de cómo fue el nacimiento de Jesús. Al hincarme me dolían las rodillas. Me decía mi abuelita que era muy importante que me hincara sin que fuera a sentarme en mis talones. Si te cansas o te sientes con mucho sueño, es que el chamuco se te monta en tu espalda porque él no quiere que alabes al Señor, decía mi abuelita. Y con solo esas palabras me ponía tiesa de miedo al rezar. Y con más ganas rezaba porque me imaginaba el chamuco, o sea, el diablo, con sus ojos atemorizantes y cuernos feroces, jalándome los hombros con sus manos grotescas. Al rato me empezaba a aburrir y me distraía a ver el nacimiento que estaba a mi derecha. Mi casita de Barbie ya tenía muchos años. Era blanca, con techo rojo. Las paredes de la casita tenían mucho uso y estaban un poco mugrosas. Aunque estuviera la casita muy usada y sencilla, Sentía mucho orgullo de tenerla. Me la había regalado mi amiga mayor, que a sus 14 años ya no jugaba con ella. La casita de Barbie se suponía que era un palacio. Dentro de la casa había una silla de plástico donde se sentaba el rey Herodes, mi muñeco Aladino. Era un muñeco con ojos grandes y bonitos. Su expresión era cariñosa y amable. Él estaba vestido en su atuendo blanco de sultán. Lo rodeaban mis muñequitas güeras, igual con sus expresiones cariñosas. Me decía mi abuelita que representaban a los bebés primogénitos que había matado el rey Herodes con su intención de matar al niñito Jesús. En mi imaginación no sospechaba que Aladino pudiera ser tan cruel y me imaginaba mis muñequitas todas degolladas. Después de estar rezando por una media hora, que a mis 10 años ya sentía que era una eternidad, yo miraba las lucecitas de color que decoraban el nacimiento y me arrullaban. También el canto arrullador de mi abuelita hacía que mi cabeza comenzara a perder su fuerza y yo empezaba a cabecear. Las lucecitas de Navidad que rodeaban el nacimiento se seguían poniendo más y más borrosas. El sueño hacía mi cuerpo sentir gradualmente más pesado. Mis piernas perdían fuerzas y temblaban un poco. Lentamente empecé a perder el esfuerzo de no sentarme en mis talones. Escuchaba ecos de las campanitas que usaba mi abuelita con las canciones de la novela. Cuando me acuerdo, el chamuco. Veía al demonio con sus manos grotescas sobre mis hombros y pensaba que si volteaba me confrontaba con sus enormes ojos de fuego, así como la imagen que había visto en las tarjetitas de la lotería. Forcé a abrir mis ojos con huevos estrellados. Santa María, Madre de Dios, grité, y fue lo suficiente para espantar el sueño. Sobrevivir la novena era para mí un reto para merecerme los regalos de Navidad. Y aunque era un poco aterrorizante, la memoria de la voz de mi abuelita al rezar el rosario y la memoria del nacimiento ha resultado ser el mejor regalo que siempre vive en mí durante las fiestas navideñas.
Thank you, Bertha. That really brings back memories, you know. I remember all that. Ruega por nosotros, ruega por nosotros. Thank you very much. Okay, our next presenter is Cecilia Caballero. Cecilia is an Afro-Chicana single mother scholar, poet who is based in Boyle Heights with her son, Alonso. She is a PhD candidate in the Department of American Studies and Ethnicity at USC, and her research focuses on Chicana, Latina, and women of color, feminism, literature, and culture. She is a co-founder of the Chicana Mother Work, a group of Chicana mother scholars, and she is a co-editor of the book, The Chicana Mother Work Anthology, Porque sin madres no hay revolución. So true. Cecilia is also an essayist, poet, and short fiction writer. Her writing has been published by the Journal of Chicana Latina Studies, Mujeres Activas en Letras y Cambio Social, Third Women Press, Raising Mothers, The Acentos Review, The Body is Not an Apology, and more. With you, here I present Cecilia Caballero.
Hi, I'm reading an essay called My Father Who Bakes Bread. My father is a panadero. He never used any measuring cups or spoons, but he knew how to roll the sweetened dough between his fingers from the memory of his own father's baking, my grandfather. My father learned how to bake from his instructions, his voice a pathway to crystallize sugars and sweets as the dough cooked in clay ovens. But here in America, it was different. My father worked inside the garage on a slate of plywood from Home Depot. First flour, then eggs, cracked one at a time. Then he would pour the melted piloncillo, the color of caramel. He mixed cinnamon into the batter, but not the powdered kind. Instead, he added cinnamon sticks that he blended in the rattling Oster blender that shook the whole laminate counter. He shaped the dough together with his fingers and palms, and this required a delicate touch. His hands, roughened from decades of farm work and manual labor, created little ears of corn, fat little piglets, concha shells bigger than your fist, twisted goat horns, and polvorones the shape of diamonds. My father baking bread. My father baked bread, and my mother took his bolillos from the oven and made dozens of tortas with fried bits of chopped steak, square plastic slices of American cheese, slivers of iceberg lettuce, exactly 2 slices of a tasteless food for less tomato, and neatly wrapped each one in foil and stacked them into a large cooler with wheels. While she packaged the food, my father stacked the pan dulce that looked like animals and seashells and diamonds into the wide plastic filing bins from Walmart. My mother and father took the bread, took the tortas, took their quarters and dimes for change, and drove off in the old forest green Jeep Cherokee with the license plate frames from UC Berkeley. The one in front said Cal Dad and the one in the back said Cal Mom. They drove around the parking lots of business parks and grocery stores, my dad opening the filing cabinets to reveal his sugary treasures to hungry customers walking back to their cars. There were so many parking lots. This means that there's too much concrete around here. Only Mount Diablo in the distance breaks the flatness of the land with all the housing subdivisions that look the same. I didn't sell any food. I ride the BART train to campus and read books. I walk past oak trees and Strawberry Creek and protesters on bullhorns at Sproul Plaza. My hands are smooth, light, and I can write my notes fast. At Cal, I take a Chicano history course and learn about farm workers in Texas and California in the 1930s. Both of my grandparents were braceros. They crossed borders in trains too, but they worked the earth for the comfort of American grocery shoppers. I open my book, a used copy that someone else already underlined and highlighted for their tests and essays, and I see black and white photos of nameless Mexican farm workers standing near their sheds in the fields, sombreros covering their eyes from the hot sun. They stare at the camera. They have no expression on their face. I wonder if my grandfathers ever looked at cameras like that, documenting themselves for someone else, for researchers, college students, me. I met my mother's father a few times, but I was too young to remember, and my father's father passed away before I was born. But I have stories that I have to make up. What was it like for my grandfathers to come here and then leave the American dream behind them all over again? The black smoke from the train's engine curling like a question mark into the air and then dissipating back into nothingness. My father says nothing about any of this. My mother says that my father's father died by the bottle when my father was 17. A habit my father inherited and one that my mother hates, ripping out the telephone line from the socket and screaming, Dios te va a castigar, except I don't think God ever did. She shattered glasses against walls. She picks up a kitchen knife and then puts it down again, a snarl on her lips like a scar. But the next day it is quiet again, and I could read books when it's quiet. My history book has many photos of American farm workers, but I only ever saw one photo of my father's father, and it's from his funeral. My grandfather is in a casket, and my father, young then, is standing near but looking away. My father, a teenager, was already crisscrossing the border back and forth from Michoacan to LA and back again to work in restaurants as a busboy. He would put on a checkered cloth apron and take platefuls of leftovers from these strange Americans who paid for their food and yet often left it mostly uneaten. This was an excess that my father never knew or understood. He and the other immigrant workers ate this strange American food from the discarded plates, biscuits, French fries, pancakes that somehow all tasted the same, bland and oily. He crossed the border for this. It was easier to cross back then. This was before the bigger walls, the bigger budgets. My father looks like his father in the casket, the same wide nose, dark lips, curled hair, dark skin, blackness that my father hates in himself and me. I wonder how my father's hand shaped the candied swirls and loops again and again, the smell of fresh baked bread, an embodied practice from his father with no measurements, only the weight of flour in the palm of one hand and sugar in the other, hands that hardened from picking hundreds of strawberries and heads of lettuce with a hunched back in 100-degree heat, hands that gripped the bottle too many times, hands that curled into fists upon my body, my own hands that couldn't stop him, my hands that picked up one of his conchas and gave it to my son when he was learning to walk. And I took a photo of this and put it in his baby book, the one I got on clearance from Ross with a smiling cartoon of a teddy bear on the cover with pockets that folded out to store any extra precious memory. The book is still mostly empty. My hands flipped the pages of that history book, flipping through photos of unnamed Mexican farm workers and precise geography maps of where they work the earth and bar graphs of their harvest in both pounds and kilos. My own hands nourishing the cells of my body with each bite of the concha that left a sugary dusting upon my hands and my mouth. Memories that I cannot measure with any real precision, but I know the feel of it, the weight of it. the books, the tortas, the sugary bread, my dad who sells bread. In the evenings, I come home from campus. My parents come home from selling bread. The next day, my dad rolls out the dough with his softness, his sweetness all over again. He has to make sure it doesn't break. And I watch because maybe he will get it right this time.
Thank you, Cecilia. Wonderful. Now, are we ready for some cafecito and pan de dulce? Beautiful description. Thank you very much. Okay, we have 2 more to go. Our next presenter is Lorena Marisol Ortega. Lorena is a writer, spoken word artist, photographer, mother, wife, and bruja who lives in Huntington Beach, California. She debuted as a playwright in the 2019 Chicana Cholas y Chisme 10-minute New Works Festival, shortly after joining the Casa 0101 Parents and Caretakers storytelling class. She finds writing to be an integral part of her healing process and enjoys holding the door open for other writers to do the same. Lorena is the proud parent of 4 children, 2 of whom are Casa 0101 youth participants. You can find her writings and enjoying her favorite meals, mushroom tacos with a side of vegan rice at Casa Fina restaurant and cantina in Boyle Heights. Lorena is presenting today En el último adiós, saying goodbye to my sweet suegra. Lorena?
Thank you, Maria. I dedicate this story to my sweet suegra, Chayito, who we lost this year on June 5th. She was bigger than life, my suegra Chayito. She always insisted on birthdays being celebrated on the actual date instead of choosing the convenience of a weekend to celebrate. I remember her love of food and how we all made sure to take into consideration that she'd want a forkful of what was on our plates. The last birthday of hers that she was able to leave the house, we chose one of her favorite restaurants, Golden West Cafe. There were about 15 of us, and getting us all to decide what to order was a task. Yo quiero pollo, she said. So we knew someone had to order chicken. Yo quiero chicken fried steak. So someone else had to order that plate, knowing full well that the first bite would go to my sweet suegra. We went down the menu ordering everything her heart desired, and we knew we'd grab our forks, cut off a piece, and walk over to her seat to give her a morsel of love. When I first witnessed this happening 15 years ago, I didn't understand why everyone gave into this behavior. I was perplexed because I had been raised not to share food from my plate, and I have raised my own children to follow the same advice. But as the years went by, I found myself falling into this pattern of ordering meals to share with her. I found so much joy in watching her savor the food. Our youngest son, Acolmixli, does this very same thing at almost every meal. At first, I also was bothered by this until I understood the connection between his behavior and Chayito's. I find myself ordering items off the menu knowing that he will grab his fork and distract me with the story before sneakily landing on my plate for the best portion of my meal. This ritual of sharing food with my sweet suegra took a sudden turn 2 years back. Her desire to eat at restaurants with heaping plates of food in front of her became a thing of the past. We began to have celebrations in her home because taking her out to the places she most loved to eat, restaurants that we once frequented to celebrate ceremonies, was no longer possible due to her inability to leave the house. Well, that and the fact that little by little her love of food began to diminish. The day arrived when we received a call to let us know she was no longer eating. I knew it would be the last time I would see her con vida. We walked into her bedroom to find her in freshly washed pajamas, her hair fragrant as though it was freshly washed. Were it not for her frail body covered up with heavy blankets and blazoned with the colorful jaguar, I could have sworn she just came out of a long bath. I listened as the rattle in her chest became louder as the breaths she took, shallow as they were, took a toll on her once vivacious and full bosom. We called the paramedics because she needed a level of care that none of us were capable of providing. When the medic put a line in her arm, I stood in the corner of her room in prayer. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia, el Señor está contigo. He interrupted me and asked, If I knew when she had eaten her last meal. I couldn't think straight and felt like a child caught using language they were warned not to use. I spat out, "You're just gonna have to ask the son who cared for her." Shortly after they took her away, I took my husband's hand and said, "Come on, we need to follow to make sure everything's going to be okay." He had no other choice than to be led by his wife, because the thought of not seeing his mother again was likely all that was running through his head. Arriving at the hospital with his siblings was surreal. How do we safely manage an emergency room visit in the midst of an airborne pandemic? Who gets to see her first and possibly last? Juanito and I went in last. I don't know how or why that came about, but I was grateful to have the opportunity to go in to see her. I can't accurately describe the emotions I had when I pushed her son towards her. I said to him, "Talk to her. She can hear you." I watched as he bent his 6'4" frame over his frail madrecita. I listened to him say to her, almost in a childlike voice, "Aquí estoy, mami." He went on to remind her how much he loved and cared for her and began talking to her about his grandchildren, our kids. Listening to him speak to my sweet suegra in this way flooded me with the memory of the final conversation I had with my pa before he left his earthly body. I began to pray the rosary at the feet of her bed, but only one stanza because I had not kept my buffet Catholicism up to date. When I could tell he had no words left to share with his ama, I shuffled towards her, taking deep breaths and bracing myself for the impact of the words I was about to whisper into her ear. I thanked her for loving me and my children without reservation. I thanked her for raising a son who loves passionately and authentically. I left her with the final words. Gracias, Doña Modesta. De aquí en adelante, yo me encargo de su hijo Juan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorena. Thank you very much. And al hijo Juan, how lucky you are to be in good hands, you know. Thank you for sharing your story. Okay, now we are with our last presenter. Our next presenter is Mariana Herrera. Mariana is interested in theater arts. Mariana is interested in theater arts, let's start all over again. Mariana's interest in theater arts began in high school as a performer. She then became a part of Teatro Mestizo in San Diego and later at California State University of LA. She currently enjoys playwriting and has been with Chicanas, Cholas y Chisme since its inception in 2013. Mariana is grateful to Casa 0101 for the opportunity to provide space for creative souls. And today, Mariana presents us with a piece. Remind me of the title because I lost it.
Mon Amor, a Love Story.
Go on. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank all the writers for their beautiful pieces. Your stories make our lives richer with the beauty. Thank you so much to all of you. So this is a piece that I wrote. It's called Mon Amor, a Love Story. So a funny thing happened to me at our yearly family tamal Christmas party. I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but as women, we have to empower one another. There's a lesson to be learned here, and that is we have to stop falling for men's stupid lines. So this is what happened. I went over to my sister's lovely craftsman home in Old Pasadena. It was late in the evening and the house was lit with the most beautiful blue and silver Christmas lights all over the eaves of the roof. She had these big ass fake reindeers in the front yard that looked like they were grazing on the succulents. It was gorgeous. It looked like a picture out of Home and Guard's Holiday Edition magazine. My sis knew how to do it right. I walked up the pathway to the front of the door. I could already smell the aroma of Mexican gastronomy at its best. I walk in and feel the warmth emanating from the kitchen. All my familia was there. Mis padres, hermanos, tíos, primos with their new fake blonde wives and about 25 sobrinos. And they were all beautiful. Our family embraces diversity, and so we have an array of everything, ranging from güeros, negritos, and caramelos to prietos and pecosos, gordos, flacos, mensos, y intelectuales. But the real star of the show, the tamales, smelling amazing. The tías made tamales de chile colorado, pollo con chile verde, queso con rajas, my favorite, and of course, vegetarian, gluten-free tamales for our sensitive millennials. No judgment, just saying. My mother made her fabulous frijoles de olla, which I love, and I'm a good cook, I ain't gonna lie. I don't use that extra virgin olive oil bullshit or that con más sola no está sola overly commercialized vegetable oil. I use real manteca, Rex lard, hard on the arteries, but easy on the taste buds. Manteca is always the best choice for authentic, savory Mexican food. Sabrosísimo. Mi tío Ponciano, the one with the newest pasty-looking blonde girlfriend, came from Mexico for the holidays. And of course, being from Michoacan, he made the requisite carnitas. My father fired up the big tina and deep-fried every part of Porky Pig. I love that smell of manteca and pork. We had chicharrones, buchis, tripas, sesos, lengua, you name it. And he made my favorite, pata de puerco. I couldn't wait to get that baby in my mouth. Come dinner time, I got in between those pata hooves and I was sucking and licking like nobody's business. I was going ham. Everybody was eating and drinking and having a great time. The little kids are running around. The millennials are texting each other, even though they're all in the same room. And thank God the babies are asleep. Someone breaks out the patron, and before I know it, I have about 4 or 5 shots of tequila. We start singing to Chente, Lola, and Amalia. Then Tío Ponciano breaks out the real stuff. I get brave and take a couple of shots of that gooey, white, milky, nasty mezcal. Then the men begin to reminisce about their past lovers. They get belligerent and sappy. And my tío Chino brings out his guitar and everybody begins to sing. Y volver, volver, volver. Well, after a few songs, my stomach starts to churn. It's rumbling and grumbling. I guess the mezcal and the manteca from Porky were not agreeing with my stomach. So I gracefully and demurely stumbled towards the ladies' room, down the hall and away from the craziness. The bathroom was beautifully decorated with a Jacob Mars floral arrangement, dimly lit with a pine-scented Christmas candle to ward off the unwanted fragrances. But I digress. So I close the door behind me and I make sure I lock it because little kids can be so intrusive. They don't even knock. They just barge in on you and tell everyone they saw their tia with her calzones down. I swear they have no respect. Anyway, I'm easing onto the toilet when a quick and sudden movement catches my eye. I can't really see though because it's kind of dark in there. I look a little closer and I try to focus, but I'm a little drunk and it takes me a minute to adjust. I rub my eyes hard, but I can't seem to get clarity. Suddenly, I focus on this big, fat, nasty old cockroach. I freak the hell out. I hate cockroaches, and this one was huge. My eyes are bulging and my jaw is practically dropping on the floor. I can't find my voice to scream. And this motherfucker looks at me brazenly. I run out of there. I want to run out of there, but I can't move. I move to the left and he moves to the left. I move to the right and so does he. This guy was trying to corner me. I quickly lift my feet onto the stool because I was terrified he might shimmy up my leg. And then, I kid you not, he says in a French accent, "Oh, mon chéri, I couldn't help but notice you in the other room, feasting on my favorite cuisine and enjoying an aperitif. Patron, Also my favorite. Yes, he said that. I look a little closer and I swear he has a tiny thin mustache that he's twirling with his skinny little dark fingers. My chérie, you look so sumptuous, sucking his teeth and good enough to eat. If I may be so bold, would you consider delighting me with your charms? I can tell by your luscious arms that you have enjoyed many a manteca meal. Ah! I scream, but no one comes to my rescue. The mariachi music is playing loudly in the background, and then he says, "Mon ami, they are playing our song." How did he know that? I feel myself becoming intrigued. I feel myself so intrigued. I've always been a sucker for a foreign accent. He starts to inch toward me in a rico suave kind of a way, and I coquettishly hike my dress up and slowly and seductively lower my right leg. He looks at me, and I look at him. Our eyes are fixed on one another, when out of nowhere, another cockroach approaches. The cockroaches is just standing there with attitude, looking me up and down with a stink eye, and I'm just about to tell her, "Let's go down, bitch," when she yells, "Pinche Facundo, I send you out for milk and eggs, y andas de puto? You better come home and take care of these damn kids." "Ah, come on, babe. Hey, you know I only have eyes for you, esa." Then in the background, I hear, "Ama, Tia is passed out drunk in the bathroom again." I'm not gonna lie, it kind of broke my heart. Why do I always attract the married ones? I know I sound like a fool, but whatevers. The end.
Yay, Maria.
Thank you, Mariana. See the art of storytelling. We can even make eye contact with cucaracha, right? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was our last presenter. And I just wanted to thank all of you who attended and thank our presenters. I'm gonna go through their names so that you don't forget them, because you will be hearing from them again and again and again, you know. Denise Villamil was Julia Sayas Melendez, Lorena Ramirez, Jesus Ibarra, María Elena Covarrubias, Jay Africa, Maria, that's me, Juan Tomás, Kerry Ramos, Berta Pérez, Cecilia Caballero, Lorena Marisol Ortega, and Mariana Herrera. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you to the writers for honoring with their stories. And if you or anybody that you know is interested in joining us, it would be great to continue with this. Who knows where we're gonna go next? I mean, print our stories. Wouldn't that be great? Let's think about that. Oh, Eddie, here, he already got us a publisher and illustrator, the editor. Okay, thank you, Eddie. Okay.
Yes. So our next round of classes is going to start January 17th. Based on Maria and Lorena's availability. We will check their schedule, but that's the date that we have plotted on the Zoom calendar for this. So hopefully, if you have kids in our classes or don't, you're welcome to join. And we'll send out an email with more information. Thank you, Maria and Lorena and everyone for wonderful writing and amazing stories, beautiful, beautiful work. We're so proud of you all and really excited to have witnessed this. Thank you for Victor for coming to visit us from all the way from Spain today. Yay, Victor. What time is it out there?
It is 20 minutes to 10 p.m.
Oh, wow. At least, wow.
Thank you. It's so nice to see you, Victor.
Yeah,
and,
you're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you to all of you also. Lorena, you want to say anything last? And anybody, any feedback is welcome.
I just want to say that it's been an incredible journey from the first time that I was in one of your classes, Maria. I was a parent, and I didn't want to stay and I didn't want to write. And Eddie and you had made it very clear that the parents were not allowed to drop off their children and walk away. And we were trapped. It was a really a scary feeling in the beginning. And when I watched my husband begin to share his stories, I thought, you know what, we found our home 31 miles away from our home. Mm-hmm. We live in Orange County, and as most of you know, the climate and the relationships we have here with people are difficult to form. I have Marianne Cortez here, who has been a great friend for a long time. She's probably one of my only allies in Huntington Beach. And my brother and sister are here as well. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And what a journey this has been. Like, we started with 5-minute writing prompts, and look at us, we're presenting to the world and pivoting, yes. Right? Yes. Usually we'd be in the same room together and high-fiving each other and hugging each other. And here we are still sharing the love and spreading our joy and our messages that need to be heard. So congratulations to each of the writers.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Lorena. And if I can say, you know, it was March 14, like in my story, we were meeting as parents at Casa when they were saying, you know, we cannot continue. As parents, we were saying, oh no, we're going to keep on going, keep on going. So the last time we saw ourselves, we saw each other was March 14, you know. But we feel by getting together on Sundays, we feel like we're still connected, we're still enjoying our company. And we even forget that it's Zoom. We laugh and cry together. We enjoy all of our successes and helping our concerns, you know, and we are overcoming this pandemic and all these things together. Any of the parents, anybody wants to say anything is welcome to say it now. Oh, the dog wants to say something. Okay.
Know when Wolfie grew that deep voice, Lorena, when I heard him on the show, I was like, oh my God, what happened to Wolfie? His voice developed.
Well, Juan Tomas is the 6'4" frame that I was talking about in my story. He's going to grow up very, very quickly. He's already 5'8" and a size 12 men's.
Wow.
He's 11 years old with hair down to his waist.
I couldn't believe that was him when I heard him.
He's every bit of a little man.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, nothing else?
Yeah.
All the writers to stay back if it's possible, please.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. If I just may say something. I just don't come out of the blue. You know, connecting with everyone here from Madrid. Okay, I'm originally from New York City, and I've lived in LA since I was 12. And I started going to Casa and many of their plays through the years, starting in the year 2000. And so I have a very special feeling for Casa and everything that goes on. So thank you for putting this on, because it helps me feel connected again. Thank you.
Great, great. And thank you very much for your support, Victor. You know, it's always nice to see you. And that's you know, we have to take also the good with the bad. In having this pandemic, it has really connected us with people that we wouldn't see all the time, you know. Yeah. So let's enjoy the best of it, okay? Thank you, everybody, and we'll see each other in January. And thank you to our audience. And if you feel inspired, you can join us, okay? January 2021, okay? Thank you and goodbye.
Afterwards.
What happened?
And Eddie can a few minutes afterwards if anybody would like to.
Okay, you wanna announce that, Lorena?
Oh yeah, I did speak about it in the beginning, that these topics were likely going to bring up some feelings in some of you, some of us, I should say, and may have triggered something that
over right now.
Within. I'd be happy to place you in a breakout room with Mariana, who is a trained professional in handling traumas and triggers. So you just let me know, or I can refer you to LA County's 211 LA. While I am here, I also do want to let you know that I am currently a community health worker along with Eddie Padilla for Casa 0101, and we have gone through the training for the COVID-19 outreach. And very soon we will be starting our targeted outreach to LA County through Casa 0101, and we will be inviting you. So be on the lookout on the Casa 0101 web pages. I think we have, it's Twitter and Facebook and
social media.
All the social medias, yes. We would love to have you present.
Yes, and also if you can share amplify the voice of outreach, that would be great.
Yes. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us. Once again, we were asking Eddie and the rest of the readers to please stay behind for a debriefing session. And we're hoping to have this program.
Okay, I have to stay behind. So can I connect?
Yeah, your microphone is on.
Oh.
Okay, I'm a master at muting people. So I'm going to ask you all to stay behind. And for those of you who are leading us today, thank you so much for being here. It has been such an honor to share these stories with you. And I'm sure that it goes without saying that our stories don't end here. Most of them, I would say 98% were born here, but this is not it for us. We're going to continue opening these doors for each other and for other writers, because COVID has us locked up into little corners, it thinks, but it doesn't. The energy that COVID has wants us to share and share and share. So we will continue, and thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your presence. If it wasn't for having an audience like you all, we would just be sharing them with each other, but they needed to be shared today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful Sunday. Blessings to you and your family.